we are recording this session because we're going to be putting our sessions on our website. You should be able to see some of the previous sessions up there already. But we can't see you. There's no camera on you. We can't hear you for your own safety. So it's only me and the panelists that are on camera. So just to let you know, if you're only just joining now, that we're recording the session, but there's no cameras on yourselves. And the session will be uploaded to our website so that you can catch it if you're not able to make the live session. It's for any young people that can't make today, can still hear from our amazing panelists. So this webinar, this free event, is brought to you by Placed. We are a social enterprise working across the Northwest, and we engage people in conversations about the places that they live and work and what it is they love about those places, what they would change, what they would improve. We also run an education programme called Placed Academy, which is for 13 to 19-year-olds interested in the built environment and learning new skills around architecture and other skills used across the built environment sector. If you want to find out more information about that education programme, you can head to our website and find out about the next one and how to apply to get involved. And then the event today is part of our Placed Academy Insights. So these are a series of free live events. We have a 10-week long programme, and each week we will be hearing from a panel of professionals who work within the built environment sector in various different roles and jobs, and they'll be talking about their career journeys, their work experience up to now, giving you some top tips and hopefully answering some of your questions that you might have about the sector and about their journeys. And in order to ask a question, you type your question in the Q&A box, which you can find at the bottom of this of your screen. So type your question in that Q&A box. If someone types a question that you'd really like to know the answer to as well, I encourage you to like the question, because that will help sort of filter that question up to the top. If we don't manage to cover your question in this live session today, we'll make sure we collate them all, and we'll be getting some responses from our professionals and emailing out those replies and answers at the end of our 10-week long programme. One other thing, a few of you have been to our sessions up to now, like I've already attended a few of our sessions, and just to say, if you manage to sign up and attend all 10 of our free live events, we will be awarding you with a certificate. We understand that it's really difficult for young people to get work experience at the moment, and we feel that it's important that we acknowledge and recognise your commitment to finding out more information about the sector, the industry, and turning up each Monday to listen to these professionals. So yes, we want to award you with a certificate to just boost your CV and any university applications as well. And that's kind of just about it for my introduction. Today we've got amazing panelists. We're going to be talking about opportunities in the construction industry. We'll be hearing from hopefully 3 different panelists. We've just got another panelist joining the call hopefully soon. And they all have quite varied experience, so it'll be really interesting to hear from all 3 of them. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to do a 10-minute presentation from each of our 3 panelists. If you think of a question, type it in the question box, and then we will open out to those questions at the end of all 3 presentations. So we have today Eve Wilkinson-Bell. She is the Estates Programme Coordinator at the Natural History Museum in London, which is very interesting, and we'll maybe find out how she went into that area of work, as well as some of her experience before moving into this role. Then we also have Paul McEwen, who is an engineering manager at SES Engineering Services based in Manchester, and hopefully joining the call ASAP. As we know, technology is a little bit challenging these days. We'll hopefully have another panelist, Chloe Payne, join us, and she is a Sustainability and Social Value Apprentice at ISG in Salford. Okay, that's enough from me. We're going to move straight to Eve's presentation. So once she's ready to share her presentation with you guys, we'll get going. Over to you, Eve.
Hopefully you can see that.
Yeah, we can see, that's great, thank you.
Is that on the presentation kind of one? Yeah.
It's on slide 1, yeah.
Cool. Perfect. Okay. Hey guys, so I'm Eve, and as India said, I'm Estates Programme Coordinator at the Natural History Museum. So how did I get here? I did A-levels quite a while ago now, but I did maths, further maths, psychology, and AS level fine art. Took fine art thinking kind of needed it to do architecture, which is what I wanted to do. But actually when I did my applications to uni, I found out that you don't really need anything for architecture, just in keen interest. So I ended up doing psychology to A-level and much enjoyed that more. And that was quite an important part of my studying A-levels to mention. So yeah, I went on to study architecture at Liverpool because I was interested in design. I was fascinated by the world around me, and architecture to me presented an opportunity to shape that built environment and the world around me. So yeah, architecture as a degree, found it quite demanding, but it's quite a roller coaster. It fueled my passion for the built environment, and I love learning about history, sustainability, and that kind of thing. But I found it a little bit hard in times, not only because there's a lot of work involved and we did like all-nighters to get projects finished and that kind of thing, but also because I came from more of a maths background, and maths is the right answer to everything, and in architecture and like art and design there's not, so kind of found that conceptual side a bit more difficult. I graduated in 2018 and I wasn't sure if I wanted to be an architect completely. I wasn't 100%. It's another 4 years minimum to be an architect. I also felt like I lacked some kind of like technical understanding and practical experience. So I took an opportunity with W11 Construction in 2018. So W11 Construction, they were a construction company. They build large luxury houses in Notting Hill in London. They specialise in digging big basements with pools, cinemas, bars, everything you could ever dream of. And they're some of the most expensive houses in the country. It's quite a small company, so I got involved at every kind of level of the business, every part of the business. Some of the projects I worked on, I worked at the start of the project, so I was the design coordinator, which meant I was liaising with architects and interior designers and structural engineers and the like, to ensure that the design was what the client wanted, but also that they were coordinating with each other and all the information was passed across all the different disciplines. Another example of something I did was more towards the end of the project. It might surprise you to know that big buildings like these, big houses, are actually passed over with manuals, like instruction manuals. So it's kind of a big document stating everything that's in the house, all the finishes, in case like you wanted to repaint a wall or you wanted something to match the kind of the paint or the nice stone, or if you damaged something to replace it, but also like how to work things, how to service the pool. Well, the people that live in these houses wouldn't do it themselves, but it's normally for their staff to help with that kind of thing. So I had to like get all that information together and then put it into a format that was like readable and accessible. So it's quite a tedious task. I mean, there's like 12 bathrooms in this whole house. It's massive. So it's quite a lot of information, but it's rewarding to get it all into like one format and hand it over to the client in a good format. So like I said, this opportunity, I got involved with projects at every stage, and I got a real insight into the construction industry and all elements of the company. So I was there for about 2 years. After 2 years, I was like ready for a new challenge, and that new challenge took me to the Natural History Museum. I actually got the position just less than a year ago. It was the start of lockdown, so I didn't actually start there until August when the museum reopened. So I've been there 6 months now. Of course, hopefully everyone will have heard of the Natural History Museum. It's a world-renowned museum. It's actually the 7th most visited museum in the world, pre-COVID, of course. It's a London historical landmark. You see the Waterhouse building. It's over 140 years old. But it's not just the old kind of historical parts. We've also got the Darwin Centre that was built in 2009. You see here the cocoon, which houses the bug collections. But actually the museum's so much more than what you see as a visitor. So you've got scientists and ongoing research, all looking to protect the natural world. So sustainability is a big part of what the museum does and its ethos. course, it has one of the most extensive collections in the world, including the first dinosaur bones ever to be discovered. So our role within the Estates Department is to maintain those buildings and ensure the legacy of the building and its collections is preserved and protected. So my specific team within that department, we oversee a number of projects and upgrades to the estate, ranging from repairs to the terracotta on the outside of the building, to upgrades to our power stations, which we produce all our electricity on site ourselves, to like smaller projects, just like upgrading equipment and that kind of thing. So essentially our projects keep the museum running. And my role within that, again, it like varies day to day. No day is the same really, which is something I really like about my job. I support the project managers to deliver the projects, and I do a lot of communication with the wider museum and my colleagues to make sure that our works don't interrupt or negatively affect visitors or the other works within the museum, like the research and scientists. So I'm 6 months in, still quite new, still learning, still exploring. Haven't been to the museum as much as I wanted to, of course, because it's been closed a lot of that time. But I'm very proud to be part of a team that's an integral part to the museum. And finally, I wanted to finish with some advice that I'd give. So the first thing is follow your passions. I think it's really important to be passionate about whatever you do and whatever role you're in. The second one is to always challenge yourself. I think everyone should always be learning, and I find that if I'm not learning, I don't enjoy things as much, and that's when it's kind of time to move on, as I found from W11. And the most important thing I'd probably take from my journey is that the career path is not a straight line. Mine's been more of a meander with lots of detours. So just be open to possibilities and opportunities. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Eve. Really great advice there at the end, especially that bit about the career path is not always straight, and you can meander off and you can change your mind and change direction. I think that's really important for young people to be aware of. So whatever kind of decisions they're making now aren't necessarily decisions forever. They can see how they feel as they go along. Welcome to Chloe, who's now joined us on the panel. We'll just go to Paul, your presentation before we have Chloe's. Paul, if you can share your screen. That's great. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just loading. There we go. Yeah, it's that.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Paul McEwen. I'm an engineering manager for SCS Engineering Services. SCS Engineering Services is a building services company, which I'm sure doesn't mean a lot to a lot of you. Essentially, we deal with mechanical and electrical services within and outside of buildings. So it's anything that sort of brings a space to life. The boring part of it is putting sockets in walls. The more exciting bit is putting solar panels in, wind turbines, integrated controls, smartphone enabled devices. And this is a little video from some of the partners we work with in terms of delivering in some of these systems. We're building a scheme in Manchester with these guys, where you can use your smartphone to pretty much control any part of the building you can think of, from to your air conditioning, to even really clever technology going on. We also get involved in sustainability strategies as the building services experts. We are best placed generally to look at energy and carbon. We sort of influence a lot of those strategies. We help architects make decisions on materials, embedded carbon, thermal performance. So there's a wide sort of range of things we get involved with, and you can see some of the images, things you'll be familiar with, things like rainwater recycling, green roofs. All these sort of things feed into how we bring a building to life in terms of drainage services and making them comfortable spaces. Outside of buildings, we get involved in a lot of other interesting things. So, just some of the pictures you can see, like wind farms, how we generate energy and deliver it to buildings, the infrastructure needed for those sort of schemes. We get involved in big projects like bridges. You can see a little video of one where we've sort of designed, manufactured bridge off-site, delivered it to. It is something we see more and more of, that data center, the Google data center, where all your data is stored that you use for your app and your websites. Obviously, we're doing more and more things online, so there's more and more of these getting built. They have a real strong focus on carbon and energy usage. So we get involved in the cooling and the ventilation and the electrical type of building. Bottom right picture you can see is heat network in Liverpool, so on our own doorstep. It's a sustainable district heat network. We're involved in the design and engineering of that, some of the buildings off that heat network. So a lot of these sort of sustainable schemes are happening very close to where we live. So a typical day, what I do in building services, there probably isn't a typical day. The days are so varied. But if I was to sort of talk about some of the things that we may do, and we spend a lot of time, especially during sort of COVID period, where we're all dispersed and we're all socially distanced, we spend a lot of time online. So we use a lot of tools to be able to help us communicate what our designs look like and what our energy profiles look like. We use a lot of 3D modeling, such as the image you can see, and we'll often use those models to produce energy analysis. We may use virtual reality headsets so that our clients can walk through the models and see exactly what the building's going to look like and sort of be in the building before they're actually built. Increasingly using technology such as drones for scanning sites and being able to get complex information very quickly back. I mean, I could be on site, I could be in a factory, fabricating different types of arrangements for buildings, and we more and more see work happening in factories, and that is facilitated through the 3D modeling that we do up front. So there's no typical day. There's such a varied sort of amount of things that I could do in any one day. So my career path, it's been a long one. I left sixth form in '99, and I essentially did STEM subjects. I did math, science, and technology. I went to university. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I did a mechanical engineering degree, which is quite an open-ended degree. You cover everything from sort of aerospace to pipe work. It's not specific to the built environment. I finished university at the worst possible moment, right in the middle of a recession. So there wasn't a lot of opportunities. And I found that the recurring sort of opportunities that kept coming up were in the built environment, and there was sort of a need for engineers and HVAC engineers in particular, which I later learned meant heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. It took me a long time to actually get start in construction. I spent quite a bit of time, as you can see, in temporary jobs, just earning some money whilst I applied for jobs in the field I wanted to do. I actually got my first job working on a heavy engineering plant in Manchester, which is the Cargill plant. It wasn't what I wanted to do as a CAD engineer, but I had to take the opportunity. About 6 weeks after starting, one of the other jobs I applied for called me and asked me to start with them, which really was the start of my career in the built environment. So unfortunately, after someone taking a chance on me, I had to let them down and go with the other opportunity. It wasn't the most sort of luxurious of starts. We worked in an office upstairs in a barber shop in Egbert as a consultant engineer. I actually got made redundant as the business sort of struggled through that tough part of the recession, which was a real challenge. I'd only been sort of two or 3 years into my career, and I was made redundant, which was a bit of a blow. However, it sort of forced me to look outside of Liverpool. I ended up at a company called WSP, which is a global consultancy, and that's where it really started to open up a lot of opportunities, and I was able to meet a lot of people that I've stayed in contact with since. Every job since WSP, NG Bailey, NGB, AMA, and SCS have all come through contacts I've made in those businesses. So NGB asked me to come and work for them because I was working on a project whilst at WSP. From contacts I made at NGB, they asked me to work at AMA, and so on to SCS. So after a tough start, it started to get a bit of momentum. And I think you can see from my notes there that the network really started to pay off once I got into those big companies. So this has to be the most boring FIFA graphic you've ever seen, but this is pretty much my profile. I've made a lot of mistakes so far, but hopefully I only tend to make them once. Best bits of my job is, you can hopefully see from my slides, it's quite varied. I've gone in a number of different directions through my career, from focusing on technology and buildings to big infrastructure projects in the nuclear industry, wind farms. There's a lot of different ways I can go in my career, and I've took that opportunity so far. Challenges, there's lots of challenges in construction. In my role, I get to sort of make the decisions on a lot of these challenges on behalf of my business. It's something I relish doing and I really enjoy, but it's not easy, so it stretches me, and that's something that I really enjoy. In terms of advice, or learning from my own mistakes and successes, if you like, network is massive. If you can keep growing your network at every opportunity, you will provide yourself with more opportunities. If you sort of think of the people around you, your peers, they're tomorrow's leaders, and it's true that the guys who are high up in businesses that I deal with regularly, I went to college with some of them, I went to university with some of them started off at the same time as me. They are now leading the businesses they're in. Another good thing I got told is you're always going to make mistakes, so as long as you have some reason behind your decisions, you'll generally get some support for the decisions you made, even if they turned out to be wrong. Learn from your mistakes is an obvious one. Try not to make them twice. And probably the most important thing is enjoy your work, because if you enjoy your work, you'll likely be successful at it. So that's my presentation.
Thank you so much, Paul. I mean, already just from seeing those two different presentations there, we're learning about the variety that there is within the construction industry. You know, we've gone from Eve talking about working on houses in quite sort of more of a small scale in detail, to some of those massive images we saw on your presentation there, Paul, of you know, with the wind farm and all the use of air ventilate, you know, massive, much bigger scale buildings. Really interesting, really great top tips at the end there as well, and I think I'm getting from both of you at least to be enjoying what you're doing and not be afraid of kind of making a move when you need to. Great advice to network as well, and we'll touch maybe a little bit on kind of scale and working, what it's like to work for a smaller business and maybe a global company when we come to the questions perhaps. But let's hear from Chloe. Shall I try and share your presentation on here? I will get it up now. So Chloe is Sustainability and Social Value Apprentice at ISG. I hope that you can see, can you see that on the screen? Yeah. Okay, hold on. Sorry, Chloe, I don't know why it's done that. Okay, this should be the start. Do you want to let me know when you need me to move to a different slide? Technology is challenging me. We can't hear you, Chloe. I'm not quite sure why. Are you speaking? I'm not sure if we're able to hear. Okay, okay, sorry, I've just got your message now that your mic is, you don't think your mic is working. Okay, oh, okay. In that case, I guess it's going to be a bit difficult for you to present this. Do you want to try one more? Are you speaking right now? Okay, all right, so we'll just go through Chloe's slides. Unfortunately, her microphone isn't working, which is a real shame, because I'm sure she would be the best person to sort of explain her career journey up to now. I have that she's currently working as Sustainability and Social Value Apprentice at ISG. so we have this slide saying a little bit about how she got to where she is today. So unfortunately, I can't seem to see the chat at the same time while I'm sharing this, so it's quite hard. But here we can see her journey. So 2012 completed secondary school, finished college in 2014. 2014 started her first job with CRT and completed college for the second time in 2015. Then we have in 2017, Chloe completed a college for the third time and then started her job with F&G in 2017. In 2019, she completed college for the fourth time and then started her job with ISG in 2019. Okay, right, next slide. So her current role, we have working with a wide range of internal and external stakeholders. Oh, sorry everyone. I don't know why this presentation is going on its own accord. Oh dear. Right. Just to reshare this slide, so she's working with a wide range of internal and external stakeholders, implementing social value on projects and bid writing to support with winning new work, conflict management, supporting multiple site teams. So if you have a question for Chloe, hopefully she's still able to answer the question. So if you'd like to know a little bit more what implementing social value on projects involves or what that really means, you might want to ask her that question in the Q&A box. So what has it been like? What is she most proud of? Making lifelong friends, making a difference in communities, gaining a range of experience. It's been really exciting so far, being an apprentice at ISG, achieving her level 4 HNC in construction management. She's learned a lot about herself and worked on some amazing projects. There's been some once in a lifetime opportunities for her. Every day is different, so she also has a lot of variety in her job, as well as lots of challenges. So any top tips? So from Chloe, she says, always learn from your mistakes, echoing what Paul also said. Ask questions. If you don't ask, you won't know. So be brave, get out there. No question is silly. And I kind of echo that in the session today. If you have any question, just type it in the Q&A box. Think before you act. So perhaps similarly to Paul, sort of giving, if you're able to sort of give reasons behind your decision making, it shows that there has been some reflection there, even if it isn't always the best decision and you learn from that mistake later on. Only you can make your career path. So again, sort of echoing what Eve and Paul have said in terms of you really want to be doing something that you're enjoying, and if it's not something you enjoy, then be brave enough to kind of make the move to something new. Okay, so I want to come out of this share. I do apologise for my computer going crazy there and sort of going on its own accord, that presentation. Hopefully we got around that. Anyway, we've had some questions come through from you guys, so that's great. So let's start off with our top question at the top here. Hi Paul, great to hear your experiences within the industry again. I was on the weights placement last year. I wanted to ask how much you think technology is impacting the sector and how it will continue to impact the sector. Over to you, Paul. I hope you managed to catch that. If not, you can view it in the Q&A box.
Yeah, no, I was just partway typing through. So hi Daniel, it was a great presentation on Friday, so well done. Yeah, in terms of technology, it's been, particularly in the pandemic, it's been vital to us delivering our projects. We over-relied upon being in the same room with each other in the past and communicating that way, getting drawings out on a table, believe it or not. So certain sort of stakeholders in the construction industry have been almost forced to embrace technology. There's been a little bit of resistance from some parts. Fortunately for me, my company, we've been sort of quite well ahead of the curve on this. We were being level 2 accredited in the early 2000s, so we've been working in this sense for a while. We deliver projects with, we've actually got projects in Cheshire now where we're delivering with a French contractor, where the design team's in Paris. We've got a London civils engineer and their design teams in London. So we've been embracing technology for a while, but it's been pretty crucial. In terms of the future of technology, I think probably some of the biggest barriers isn't the technology itself, it's the collaboration and the willingness to collaborate from the stakeholders. So we have a lot of great tools at the moment in terms of Revit and BIM software packages. We have lots of good tools for using that, such as VR headsets. We've got lots of bolt-ons like augmented reality. One of the biggest challenges is getting people to be willing to share information and the commercial sensitivities around there. But that's where you need to convince people of the benefits, and sort of the people coming into the industry now, people from gaming backgrounds and from app development backgrounds, they're bringing a lot of value that traditionally people in the construction industry couldn't see. So there's a lot of opportunity in that space, hopefully for you guys on the call to step into. Don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, definitely. It's crazy. I think just sort of understanding, you know, before when you were sort of showing that demonstration of like smartphones working everything from like events, and that there was that image of that person sort of going through the door, and how much like, wow, technology is impacting the way buildings are operating as well. Yeah,
I think just on that, I mean, I sit in a lot of meetings with clients, the people who are actually going to spend the money, and more they're not talking to me about how the building looks and feels. They just take that for granted a little bit now. They talk to me about the experience and how when their building users walk into the building, how they experience the building, and their experience at the minute is sort of it's tied to how they use the smartphone a lot of the time. Can they come in? Can they? So we do a lot in the technology space with controls, with your Googles and your Nests and that sort of things. There's a big push in that sector.
Wow, yeah, thank you. Okay, so we have a question come through as well, and I'm guessing this is for you, Chloe. And it looks like you might have responded to it in the chat box. So the question was, why did she go to college 4 times and what did she study? So it looks like Chloe has hopefully started to answer that question in the chat box, so make sure you check that out. So we'll move on to our next question for Eve, which is, what made you want to work at the Natural History Museum?
Okay, so of course it's an amazing, quite exciting museum. I mean, I think everyone's heard of it, and it's an exciting place to work. But not just that, like W11 construction was a lot of private client work, and it was all about money and investment and returns, and getting the most value out of things, selling it for the most money, which is some people that's exciting for them, but for me, natural history is it's less about money and more about protecting the past and the collections and what they have there, as well as protecting our future in terms of sustainability. And for me as a person, that's just more kind of in line with my personal values. So that was a really important thing from a job, and I just saw the opportunity to kind of I think what natural history does, especially through their research, is try to make the world a bit of a better place, and I think that's quite important for my job. So as much as going around fancy houses and rich people's houses was exciting, I just think natural history's ethos was more in line with my values.
Great, thank you, Eve. So drawn in because it aligned with your ethos, which kind of echoes sort of before, like doing something that you really enjoy, but also that you feel is impactful and important to you, for sure. Great, thank you. We actually have like another question for you, Eve, if that's all right for me to go straight and ask you to. Eve, do you have any aspirations to go on to further things or a bigger company after your current role? Maybe Eve doesn't know just yet, but let's see.
Well, luckily, Natural History being quite a big company, got about 1,000 employees. They do a lot of investment in their people. So I'm looking to do some professional qualifications over the next kind of 6 months, I think 6 to 12 months. So that's APM and Prince 2, if anyone's interested. Basically, like professional qualifications that will make me more of a project manager. They're all kind of short courses. They're not university courses or anything. I think you can do at uni, but so yeah, that I've been doing a lot of kind of project management, especially in my old role. I had a lot of responsibilities of project management, but that would make it more kind of official, kind of more professionally qualified. So that's kind of the next thing in the kind of medium term. And then long term, I don't really know. I'm really interested in sustainability, as you can probably tell. And I've worked on quite a small scale, and then like on a more of a medium scale with natural history. You know, we've got a few sites and a bit bigger projects. But I'd quite like to work more on like the urban scale and look at projects that affect cities and that kind of thing, because I think that's a really interesting area. So possibly there, but of course not. I've only been there 6 months. I'm not thinking about that.
Early days so far, but definitely some aspirations. Yeah. It's interesting that you touched on sustainability there, because I was actually going to bring that up myself as well. And maybe, I mean, you sort of said that is important to you, Eve. Paul, how much does sustainability, you know, you also kind of touched on that in your presentation too. How important is sustainability, if you were to sort of say generally now? Is that becoming more and more important in the construction industry? What's your opinion?
Yeah, it's pretty much the sort of main topic, the sort of handful of topics that come up recurringly. That's right at the top of the agenda, probably for the first time. When I started in the industry, it was just the start of the sustainability movement, and that was through legislation, through building regulations. And that's kind of where I started out my career in consultancy. I was a building physics engineer looking at building models, carbon and energy simulations. Now clients are now tuned into sustainability, and they tend to understand what it means a lot more. That it's not just some trees outside the building. It's how much carbon they use, how much energy they use, how they use water, it's the impact they have on the community. It's all those things. I always try and work for businesses that have that as part of their ethos. So the wage group that we're part of, it's quite a big part of our ethos. You don't find many big corporations that don't embrace sustainability anymore, but those that sort of live and breathe it are a bit harder to find. So yeah, it's right up on the agenda. The great thing about sustainability is there's no template for it. You get to figure out what is the most sustainable way for you to develop your built environments. So that's why we need sort of good people with sharing that ethos, that can come up with the good ideas, that can sort of run through them with the stakeholders and work out what is the best map for that building and that project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, great. Absolutely. Like you kind of touched on a bit, as we had another question here come in for you saying, what is SES doing to be more sustainable in the industry sector? Could you give some specific examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a business sort of corporate strategy. The sort of ethos of that is we construction uses a lot of carbon. It's one of the biggest polluting industries. So we through sort of incremental change, things like through our logistics, changing to all electric vehicles, looking at recycling initiatives for our site waste, looking at sustainable timber sources. Sort of the wage group is a construction part of the business. There's a number of sort of incremental elemental changes that we're looking at, and it sort of just reiterates the point that sustainability is such a big topic. There's through incremental change you can make a big change, a big impact. I mean, on a project level, away from the business, I am sort of tasked with making projects as sustainable as possible for clients. So on a project level, I will be looking at sort of a mix of technologies for the client, whether it be solar panels or a renewable heat source, or how we use controls to stop wasted consumption, or how we use natural ventilation, all those things. So there's loads of bits that sustainability touches in my role, from a business level, from a project level, from a community level. We do a lot of community initiatives. So and Daniel's mentioned he was on a talk on Friday with us with weights. It's just that sustainability comes up. We can. It's such a big topic. We can talk about those different areas.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. I wonder, Chloe, if you have any comments to add to that you could put in the chat box, because just knowing that your position at the moment at ISG is Sustainability and Social Value Apprentice, you know, are you able to sort of add to that in terms of what that means for ISG? And also, I think just something that Paul's mentioned about technologies featuring so much in construction now, and how people want to know more about how it's going to feel when they're in the building and entering the building and coming in and out of that building. And I suppose that perhaps ties into social value a little bit. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Chloe, and if so, please type in the chat box so that we can all see. We've got another question here. Can women get involved in the construction industry? Well, we have two women on our panel today, which is focused around opportunities in construction. So two that could respond to that, and actually our next insights session next week will focus around women in the built environment, so we can maybe discuss that a little bit more. But Eve, do you have any initial first comment on that question?
Well, don't be fooled, because the construction industry is probably like 60-70% men, probably more, especially on site. I spent a lot of time on site and I was the only woman most of the time. Less so in Natural History Museum, of course, it's quite a bit more equal, but then we've got a lot of scientists and that kind of thing. But yeah, women definitely can get involved in the construction industry. It's very much being pushed in the sector at the moment, because it was very much male dominated up until the last probably 10-20 years. I mean, on site, the people actually doing the kind of work on site, like manual work, is still very much like probably 90%. I think we had one female, she was a traffic marshal and she was amazing, she was really lovely. But yeah, that's at W11 we had about 90 people working on our sites and one of them was female. So
wow.
Yeah, shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, women definitely can get involved in the construction industry. It has its difficult at times, but yeah, and I'll speak more about that. I'm on the panel for next week.
Yeah,
so
that's great. Thank you. Chloe, if you have anything to add to that, being our other woman on the panel today, please add it into the chat box. I've got a few questions kind of following on from the one that you were talking about, you were answering before, Eve, about aspirations to go on to further things, but just sort of a general question about progression within the construction industry. We have a question saying, how far could you have gone with your previous job if you were to stay? But I think I kind of want to turn this more into a general question in terms of progression opportunities within the construction sector, because I know that for some young people, this is quite important. You know, if they start off, we've got an apprentice on our panel today, Chloe, but if, you know, and also hearing Paul, your timeline of how you sort of worked your way up and worked for several different companies along the way. Paul, if you want to start off on that, do you feel that there are quite a lot of progression opportunities within the sector?
Absolutely, definitely. I think if you look at construction businesses, most people move through the business from an entry level. So if you look at actual construction companies, a lot of people start off on site and then end up on the board. I've worked for consultancies where a lot of the consultants start off as junior consultants and work up to become partners. You don't tend to enter companies at the top level. So absolutely, I think the big opportunity is that in construction, there's been a bit of a lost generation in terms of people. STEM has had a lot of effort put into it to encourage people to take up STEM subjects, because there is a need for STEM specialists. And when you see it, the sort of things that we're doing in construction around science and data and virtual reality and all those things, we need more STEM people than we needed just for the general construction. So the opportunity is definitely there for people.
And would you say progression can happen quickly?
Yeah, basically you've got to give yourself opportunities. I think my network shows you anything sort of by on my route map, as much by accident as design. I sometimes got opportunity by being forced into new scenarios, such as being made redundant. In the right scenarios, you can get opportunity. The more opportunity you get, the quicker your progression will happen. The other way to progress is to move companies, but you've got to sort of manage that, in that you've got to be learning along the way. So as long as you can manage your learning as you're progressing, then you'll do well.
Thank you. Eve, do you have anything that you want to add?
Yeah, so working in a small company like W11, there is a lot of progression opportunities. So I started off fresh out of university, didn't really know what I was even doing there, to be honest, and they didn't really know what to do with me. But within like the 2 years I was there, progressed like up to the stage where I was involved in as I say, like every element of the business, to the point where I was in like directors meetings, management meetings, like I saw every part of that business. And although my job title kind of stayed the same, I mean, I had responsibilities, like I was looking after my own site and doing that kind of thing. So, you know, just 2 years from university, I went from being sat in the corner of office, not knowing what I was doing, to literally managing an entire project, literally speaking to a client on a daily basis, and almost finishing that project like solely by myself during lockdown. So that was fun.
Wow.
So yeah, it's an interesting industry, because in some respects a lot of people do, like Paul was saying, they go from really they start off as a labourer on site and they move their way up, as that's what the director of my old company did. He literally started on site and kind of started his own business, and you know, doing really well for himself. And it's interesting because you don't need so many professional qualifications. Like obviously I studied architecture, but I don't really need to, which is quite good because it means you can forge your own path. So when I started, didn't really know what part of the business I'd be kind of working in, but I realized that because originally they thought I might become a quantity surveyor, which is one part of construction. There's a lot of like finances and pricing things, because I'm quite good at maths, so they thought maybe we'll use her there. But I was just quite good at organising things, so that's how I kind of fell into that. Natural History Museum things are a bit slower because it's quite an old institution, it's quite old-fashioned, and people don't move up as fast as in a small company. So I think it's quite important to note that in small companies, it's like kind of, you know, you progress and you have more responsibilities because it's a small company. And in a bigger company, there's possibly more opportunities to learn and get professional kind of qualifications, as I found, as I'll be doing my professional qualifications in the next year or so, but not as much opportunity to kind of go up as quickly as in male position.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so again, it sort of depends, I suppose, on the organisation that you're working for, and depends on the size of that organisation, which kind of I sort of touched on that a bit before, that, you know, there are opportunities within like smaller businesses where that progression maybe happens a bit quicker, or you're given responsibilities quicker. What is it like though to be working for like a construction company that's global? Oh, Chloe, I think we maybe heard you then. And actually, if we can hear you, that's great, because I'm going to direct this question to you, actually, just because I know ISG is international, you know, it's an international company. And what is it like to work for an international company, or something that's so massive? How many people are in your team? You know, what's the reality of working for something so huge?
Yeah, so I've sort of worked for small companies, big companies. I worked for Canal and River Trust, which they're international, but they're a charity, so it was quite a small group of us. It was a lot more, it felt like a family more than anything. I then went on to work for a company called Faithful and Gold. So they're a big international company, and it was a real sort of change to kind of how it felt in a small company. It was a lot of faster pace, so it was sort of like, you know, things happened a lot quicker within the business than what they do in a smaller company. And obviously with ISG, it's very similar. Things happen really quickly, and new people come all the time, and people change and people get promoted. So you are always seeing sort of a lot of change in a bigger company, I'd say, as opposed to when you're working for a smaller company.
Yeah, and in terms of your, oh, sorry.
Go on. I'll mute myself for a second.
No, it's okay. I've sort of forgotten what I was going to ask then, but that's great to know. I mean, Paul, do you have anything to add to that? Because I know that you've had some experience working for a global company before SES.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's sort of obvious that sometimes the bigger the company, the more people you get to meet, and it's not always true. But I mean, when I worked for WSP, that was multinational. I got to meet people who were working out the Indian office, for example, and they've moved on and they do other things now, and I still work with them on other projects, even though they're outside the UK. The flip side is when you work for a smaller company, you get to touch a lot more roles and you have a lot more responsibility, and you may find actually that you like to do something else within the business. So I wouldn't say just join a big company and the world's your oyster. You join a small company and you get other types of opportunities. So yeah, if you can do a mix of both, that's great.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll just have, there's another question here. Was it easy to get a job straight after university? Eve, do you want to go for that one?
In short, yes and no. I think if I'd have tried to go for an architecture job, I'd have found it difficult because my portfolio wasn't great. I wasn't the best. I really enjoyed architecture, but wasn't really good at it. And I did go for a few architectural assistant jobs and didn't get them. Really luckily, I had a connection who knew someone who worked for W11. And I know I'm very privileged to be in that position. And I went for an interview and spoke to them. And that's how I got that. So it's kind of about connections, which is really sad, I think. But yeah, I know a lot of my friends who study architecture some of them walked into jobs and some of them didn't. And a lot of other people who've done different degrees. It's a mixed bag. It's really hard, but I think, and it also depends on when you come out of university. Like, I'm sure coming out of university in 2008 was a lot more difficult than when I came out of university. Coming out of university now compared to, when I came out of university would be very difficult. So I think it's a hard question to answer because it depends on your circumstances and that kind of thing. But I did a lot of networking when I was at university. So going back to what Paul said, and I've still got connections through that I know I could, if I was struggling, then call on them to kind of make more connections. I think that's a very good point that Paul made about networking, and just, if you're interested in something or someone, just make sure you reach out to them and keep in contact. I know there's companies that I would love to work for in the Northwest when I move back at some point in the future, and I try to keep in contact with them and email them every year or so just to remind them I exist, and hopefully at some point in the future I'll go back and I'll be working for them.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. It does depend on the time that you're leaving university, what opportunities are out there, or there's a few different factors that play in there. But I think, yeah, it's really important to network and keep those connections going, and that's something that you can be doing even over LinkedIn or sort of over online platforms, if we're not able to sort of be linking up with people face to face currently. Chloe, you're in an apprenticeship. Do you have anything to sort of add to that in terms of how you've ended up going into the sector before we sort of come to a close? If you can.
Yeah. So I've actually done sort of 3 apprenticeships in my kind of career. I think the reason I always went for apprenticeships was because it offered that opportunity to sort of earn while you learn, and also, like the other guys have been saying, the networking, meeting new people. I think sometimes as well, you've got to remember that not everybody has the best intentions for you. So I think it is keeping that awareness and not being led down paths by other people too much, because, obviously, I think in one of my other slides that I put in about, it's your career and you've got to really make sure that you do what's best for you and not necessarily what's best for other people. So I think it's really easy when you're younger, which I think is something that I did when I was younger, and I made a friend at this company, and it was one of those where when it came to a job at the end of it, I kind of didn't want to get it over her because I felt like it would be ruining that friendship, whereas I look back and she wasn't bothered about that, which is something where I think, maybe I should have been a little bit more like that, as opposed to thinking about everybody else at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's something. Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine, I'm done.
I was just going to say, I think that's definitely something that you learn as you get older and through more experience, that it really is important to stay true to yourself and to be doing something that you believe in and something that you enjoy, and to kind of check in with yourself and make those changes at times if you need to along the way. Okay, thank you so much to our panel today. Apologies for the tech issues that we had, but thank you to everyone who's joined us for this live event. And I hope that it's given you a little bit more insight into those different opportunities in the construction industry, and also the variety that there is within the job roles that exist out there. If you have any other questions for our panelists that we've maybe not managed to cover in this live session, you could also email them to me, and we'll try and make sure we get responses out to you. But I think we've managed to cover most of the ones that came up in the Q&A box today. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to our panelists. And I hope to see you at our next live event next Monday at 4:30. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.